Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am very excited to have this next guest on, former coworker of mine, Dr. Ebony Stubbs. Ebony, is great to have you on here, and thank you for joining me.
No, Joe, I really, really appreciate you having me, and just really excited to be here.
Yeah. So, Ebony, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. That question is always funny. We spent so much time in uniform. I think about
Yeah.
military first, but there's so much
Yeah.
more, right? So I'm going to go a little off the normal beaten path. And so, who is Ebony? I am a mother to two wonderful children, Hunter and Emery. I am a officer in the United States Army with over 18 years of experience in leading and learning to follow, which I think is key is a key commitment to leadership. I You introduced me as doctor, so I do have my doctorate in executive leadership, which is something that I hold near and dear. Through that process, you learn so much, not only just about leadership, but about yourself. And so excited to share that with you today. I am a sister, a friend, and a lifelong learner. Just excited to be here. Key. Why are you here, Ebony? So I'm also the founder and CEO of LeadHER Conversations, which is a platform for women of color to invest in their own personal leadership development. We focus on the individual first and housing and honing in on those self-leadership skills. And then we take that groundwork in that platform and further develop their outward leadership.
Well, I love it, and there's so much. Have I when I got to know you a little bit? Of course, we joined forces at HRC whenever during COVID, so our interactions were come and go at some points. But the ability to learn from someone like yourself. I've spent most of my career as operations and administration, and with someone like you, who your background, obviously operations, but also healthcare administration, your business acumen, your leadership, and then being selected for the job you're in now is absolutely incredible. And one of the biggest things I wanted to do with this podcast was there are a lot, I think, of people who are maybe feel the same way I felt as I started to transition out of I'm about to enter the civilian world. I feel like I don't have the experience and the knowledge, the background, that I don't speak the same language as business leaders, business owners, corporate America, right? And how can I start on my working on myself? What can I do to educate myself to learn this? And when I saw, obviously I knew you earned your doctorate. All these other things, you were someone who who came to mind as you know a very strong, independent. Like, I can do it. Doesn't matter if it's COVID. I can get my doctorate during that time. I work at HRC. Like, everything you bring to the table, I think, is inspirational for a lot of folks who just maybe are afraid to try something new, or try to maybe step out of their comfort zone. And so I am absolutely thrilled to have you on here. Um, can you talk to me? What drove you to pursue such heights? A lot of people will stop at their master's degree and kind of coast and see whatever, or even your bachelor's degree. But you pursued your doctorate, and then you started your own company. Can you just walk me through kind of what brought you to that period of your life?
Oh wow. If I'm really honest,
Hmm.
fear. The initial feeling was fear, um, because we are sort of insulated.
Hmm.
Um, we are in uniform and sort of in our own bubble and in our own world. Um, and I didn't want to. I knew that eventually my time in the military would end. And when I started my doctoral program, we were going through a big transition, and the end could come at any time. At least I thought.
Right.
So, the fear of the possibility of me having to leave something that has been so great to me and my family and not knowing what was next. That is, in all honesty, that was my initial motivation. I did not want to have to come to terms with, I've done this for so long and I love it. Now it's not there, and I don't know what's next or what could possibly be next.
Right.
And so, and then so that led me to start thinking, well, what am I passionate for? What do I feel like I gain the most purpose and fulfills me the most? And that led me to people. I enjoy one of the things that I enjoy so much about the military is that we get to connect with people in a way that I'm not sure, and I can only speak from my experience, that I'm not sure that our civilian counterparts get to. We get to connect with people, their families, their lives, and impact them in ways that stay with you and them for a lifetime. And so people, I'm like, okay, I love that. I think that I'm good at that. Um, what can I do? What does that mean? Right.
Right. Exactly.
What does that mean? I can't just, that doesn't mean anything yet. And so I just took some time and was looking for, well, where did I feel the most gaps in my military career? Right? Where did I feel like I wasn't seen as much, or I didn't have as many, I guess, things that spoke to me in a way that I understood.
Mm-hmm.
And it led me to leader development. I think, and with that, I was like, okay, I think we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
This means something.
Yeah.
Leader development. What does that mean, right? And that drove me to then want to become a student of leadership in a
Mm-hmm.
different way. In a different way, and being able to connect to it in a way that was more personal than professional.
Gotcha.
Um, so that's how I ended up in my executive leadership program. Um, and in there, I gained a personal relationship with the aspects of leadership, with the teaching of leadership, with the participation of leadership, and then its development, and what all those things meant to me. And then that took me to LeadHER Conversations, right? I never, when I was a young leader, I didn't have leaders that spoke to me about leadership in a way that really allowed me to be my most authentic way, my most authentic in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And so with conversations, that's exactly what that platform is. It's a way for us to provide honest, empowering, and relatable leadership development, starting with self first, so that you're bringing your authentic self to your leadership. And so that's how we got. So it
Yeah.
went from to passion, and now absolutely living and walking in my purpose.
That's beautiful. I mean, it really is. I mean, just I think it's hard for maybe some people to understand kind of the experiences we have in the military, how, you know, helping people and leading people, developing them, and how much that, I think a lot of people think it's, they're very selfish minded, right? Like we're in this for our career we're going to, step over people to get promoted. And when really, I think a lot of our greatest satisfaction, is to see the success of others.
Yes.
I don't know if that reaches far and wide. But I think for people like, yourself and I, like, especially at HRC, right? Like some of our biggest joys are seeing our friends and peers and, officers in the field get promoted, get selected for command,
Yeah.
for great jobs. Right.
That's,
And I think a lot of people don't understand that. So with that, what did you have to like really look at the way you were leading going through this program? Did it make you question or take a look back at how you lead, and did it change your approach on anything?
oh my gosh. Yeah. It did. Not to say that there were things that were brought to me that were novel, I just hadn't heard of, but the actual execution of them, and then like I said, I really went into my program from a personal standpoint, and not so much as a I knew it would help me professionally, but I wanted to understand and be in this program personally. And so it really helped me to understand the places where I may not have been as honest or authentic in my leadership. And then feeling confident and comfortable enough to face those areas and then say, I'm committing to changing. This is what I want. I say I want to be this type of leader. And so I need to make sure that I'm practicing what I'm preaching. So absolutely. Those areas where, it just didn't quite feel like me, but it was working. I said, okay, you need to take a bold step. And if it doesn't feel like you, change it.
Hmm.
And I mean, I think that it, it's worked.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
So far, so
but
good,
I
right?
also but I also know that it may not be it may not be as appealing to everyone because it's different.
Hmm.
Uh, but I am comfortable and confident enough right now to say that I'm okay with that. I'm okay with different.
Hmm.
As long as I am showing up and I'm able to show up in my honest self, um, and still be professional and tactful and remaining within my military bearing. I'm okay with that. Different is okay. Different used to
Yes.
be scary. It
Yes.
used to be scary. I think that that's why so many of us struggle
Hmm.
to find where we quite fit and that understanding because different is scary and it can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, but right now, I'm just like I'm okay with that. When
Yeah.
when my students say, I've never had a leader like you, I take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Okay, yes,
Yeah, for sure.
that's that's
Yeah.
fine because the people who you go out to lead, should also say the same thing about you. They should also be able to say that they've never had a leader like you in a good way, right?
Yeah. Yes. Let's cross our fingers.
People we deserve that, in the future of this organization that we love and serve deserves that too.
Yeah. You bring up a great point, right? Being authentic you.
Mhm.
And I would like you to expand on that a little bit more on when you say authentic you, but you know, we in the military, not only are we a melting pot of various cultures, um, we also have, I don't know if it's more unique than other businesses, but you have an 18-year-old
Mhm.
fresh out of high school, or maybe didn't even graduate high school, right? All the way through general officers from all walks of life, all education levels. The you got a generation that didn't grow up on social media at all, and one that is living on social media, right? and, and so if we're all one way all the time, or if we're not being true to ourselves, I think it's disingenuous, and I think a lot of people see through that. Um, but if you could, yeah, could you expand on that a little bit more on being your authentic self?
Yeah, I think. Let me see. One of the things that I heard from the very beginning, right, of my military career, is that leaders lead from the front, right?
Hmm.
Um, and me as a young leader in hearing that, I took that as, you must, as a leader, I have to be the best at everything. I need to know everything. I need to be the expert in everything. I need to be, the first at everything. I need to be
Right.
everything. I need to be everything. That's how I internalize it. Now that may not be what was how people intended to communicate it, but me as a young leader, that's how I that's how I received it. And from the very beginning, that shaped how I showed up, right? Not
Hmm.
necessarily being the first to ask the question or to say, "Oh well, I don't know."
Right.
Because, you just don't know. I always felt like I needed to really, to to be something that I wasn't, and when I wasn't able to be everything, that was uncomfortable for me. Um, and so I struggled with that a lot, and it caused a lot of stress, in trying to be, in my mind, perfect,
Right.
because I didn't want to. I didn't want to show up in any sort of default or deficit, to people who I was charged to be a leader,
Hmm.
right? Because leaders lead from the front, and so in trying to reconcile that with now being what I deem as my most authentic self, because authentic Ebony is not perfect, nor
Right.
does she know everything,
Right.
um, nor can she, outrun an 18-year-old anymore.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
She can't do any of that.
Yeah.
And so having to, reconcile what that leaders lead from the front meant to young Ebony and what leaders lead from the front means to Ebony now, um, as a leader, means, showing up and being me,
Hmm.
and being comfortable and saying, well, I don't know that. Teach me,
Yes.
right? Teach me. And that being okay, that doesn't now, subtract from my leadership or my effectiveness, or and it shouldn't, hopefully, make people believe that I'm less of a leader because I don't know that, and I'm asking
Right.
you to teach me. um and so being comfortable in that space, and then, um not being afraid to ask questions, right? Because what I would do is, I wouldn't. No one. We've all been in the room. No one wants to
Hmm.
be the question,
Oh yeah.
right? We're gonna leave and we're gonna ask amongst ourselves,
Hmm.
and we're gonna
Yep.
come up with the answers amongst ourselves. But who does that serve, right?
Right.
Who, what does that do? And so, I learned to be okay with that. And that in itself should not have a negative reflection on who I am as a leader, or how I'm perceived as a leader, or how smart I am, or how effective I am, or whether or not I'm going to perform well because I have questions. And so I had to grow from that initial mindset of what leaders lead from the front mean, and and it helped me to accept and to realize, and showing up and, being myself, that is leading from the front, right?
Hmm.
The hope is that it encourages those around me to see me showing up in my authentic self, and my honest self inspires and encourages them to do the exact same. Because I think you said that we're a melting pot, and we
Hmm.
are. We should look like that, right? We should
Hmm.
look like. And so, really learning and growing away from that initial understanding of what leaders lead from the front means, um, I think has really helped me in showing up in my most authentic self.
Yeah. That's great. And do you find that that helps you leading teams, like identifying, hey, this person's maybe, as we say, a strong runner, right? But maybe this person is better leading a small group or amongst the staff. Do you see that in your day-to-day life now, and how you does it change how you view people or how you value different leadership roles in other people?
Mhm. It definitely enhances, my ability to see people,
Hmm.
you know, seeing people, and understanding that we all bring value to whatever team it is that we're on. So it definitely enhances that, particularly in my current job where, I'm executing leadership in a different way. And
Hmm.
I am. receiving, groups in a different way, and so really understanding that, how we show up is different, how we execute leadership is different. And then for right now, how we learn and then how we visibly show we're learning is different. So yeah, it definitely has enhanced how I'm able to see people, and then recognize their value to any situation.
Yeah. I
And then
found that.
uh,
Mhm. Go ahead.
and to be, but not only me saying I recognize and I see you, but being able to then communicate to them, I see you, right?
Right.
And this is where your value is, and I'm happy that you're here. So yeah.
Yeah. That so at a much lower level, when I was at the logistics cabins career course as an instructor, um, it was funny. You had those who were very outgoing, very loud, and drew a lot of
Mhm.
attention in the classroom. You had those who were more reserved and laid back, and were trying to soak it all in. And there was, I think sometimes people viewed it like, man, I need to speak up like this person because I'm being overlooked. And it's like, no, look,
Mhm.
congratulations to them. They're very outgoing. Sometimes they just blurt what comes out of their mouth, and a lot of times it's wrong. But they, they, that is their style. Yours is
Mhm.
more receiving the information, thinking about the information before you say something, and then maybe you're not the most out there, but when you get in that small group setting, you're able to either work as a teammate to bring equal value or
Mhm.
lead a smaller group in a more. So I found that was interesting. It was a interesting experience for me because you had people from all over the place, all these logistics officers who left as platoon leaders or as staff, and
Mhm.
they all felt their leadership style. They all had a different leadership style. Some felt theirs was better than others, but I think it was good. It was a good experience for me because I was able to change my perspective
Yeah.
and understand the strengths in a lot of different individuals. Um, so with your podcast and your business, like you focus on women of color.
Mhm.
Can you talk more about that? Is it focused on military, or is it focused on just everything outside of military and military?
Well, I work with women from all different types of backgrounds.
Hmm.
So no, it's not just military based program, nor is it geared to my sisters in arms
Hmm.
only. I think that that's important, that I make that distinction, um, because, like I said in the beginning, the purpose of Lead Her Conversations is to starting from self leadership. And so that's this style of program is really open, and is accessible to anyone.
Hmm.
Uh, I know as I transition, and I have more and more civilian interactions, I realize it's something that both,
Yeah,
you know, women in the military and outside of the military can benefit from.
yeah. No, I think it's you know I think leadership coming from women who've done what you're doing, who can teach about it, is so valuable. As a father of three girls,
Hmm.
um, it's I there is so much I can offer them,
Yeah.
but having role models like yourself, my wife,
Hmm.
um, and others, the strong presence of that pursue your passions despite your fears,
Hmm.
um, and not taking a back seat to say, well, I can't do this. This is not for me. When you have examples of people going out there and just really making it happen despite what their fears are, and for that, it kind of leads me to my question: how do you view mentors, or advocates, even in your approach, or in how you view leadership?
Yeah. Um, Mentors, sponsors, advocates, um, whatever you want to call them. I know some people lump them into, your social network,
Mm-hmm.
your community, whatever that looks like for you is absolutely required, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's okay if you don't have all of them. If you can't say like, oh, I have a sponsor, a mentor, it's okay. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's okay too. Because I talk a lot about mentorship and sponsorship, because I know at the beginning of my career, I definitely had more sponsors than I had mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely had more people who were in rooms that I was not in and couldn't even dream about, speaking up and on my behalf,
Mm-hmm.
than I had, down or that I had personal connections with on a daily basis, like a mentor, or a recurring basis, like a mentor who I can bounce things off of. Um, I don't think I really got a solid mentor until I was about in year, I guess 4 or 5 of my career, that I can say
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this person is a mentor, and to this day is still a mentor. Um, but I would say that they are required. And I wish that that had been explained to me a little better as a junior leader,
Mm-hmm.
and that and that mentors don't necessarily have to seek me out. I can seek them out, right?
Yep.
And mentors, I don't have to talk to every day, right? I
Yep.
don't have to see them every day, um, but I do maintain a relationship with them, that if I need them, I know that I can call out to them. I know that they have my best interest at heart. I know and trust that they are a excellent sounding board, um, and guidance giver, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't learn either, until about year 5 or 6, that mentors um, don't necessarily, at least in a uniform, I'm speaking from a uniform perspective, don't necessarily have to outrank me either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I would say, you know, if you're struggling to find a mentor, you know, you reach out. If you see someone who is doing something that you admire in a way that you aspire, you reach out, right? You reach out. No, no doesn't hurt as much as we think it does.
Yeah, exactly.
um, and so I wish that I had gained that understanding a little earlier in my career. Um, because I may, because thinking back, hindsight is 2020. There may have been some missed opportunity earlier on to have mentors, um, but I didn't stick to the relationship the way it needed to be. And so I would definitely say they are needed. If you don't have them, you seek them out. And mentor, you can never have too many. you
Yeah.
because you can never have too many. You seek them out. You, as the mentee, you also have a role in maintaining that relationship. It's not just a one-way street. um and if you are feeling like, oh, I don't have anyone that I think could be a mentor, what does your community look like? Who's around you
Mm-hmm.
that helping you in your decision making process, right? Even if you're relying on community, if you're relying on network, any of that is vital to success, not just in leadership, but in my opinion, in life.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. There's a lot of lessons that as a younger, not only officer, I guess man, father, uh, that I wish I would have asked. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, it would have been now whether or not I would have
Mhm.
learned or taken that advice is one thing.
Mhm.
Because as you're younger, you kind of maybe sometimes you're a little bit more stubborn than others at times in your life. But yeah, having people out there, and you make a good point about reaching out. I interviewed General Dingle a couple weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I asked him the question about, do you have people reach out to you still, right? As a retired general, with all the knowledge he has, and he said not as much, and he brought up a story where, because he said, kind of like when I just asked him, I was like, hey, would you be interested in doing my podcast? And wasn't sure if I'd get a response or not. I mean, I have known him in the past, but retired general, and I figured I'd try to take advantage of the fact that he didn't have a staff of people in between him.
Right.
So I asked him, and he brought up a story where, as a young captain, he was in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And the launch tool commander told him to reach out to him for anything, and he basically offering himself up, whether he realized it or not, to be a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And something happened after a few months. Long story short, he at a last second need called that commander to come be a guest speaker. And after the speech, the commander went up to General Dingle and was like, hey, why haven't you called me? I told you to call me. And he's like, well, you're the commander of Launch Duel. And he said, let me worry about my schedule.
Yeah.
You reach out to me. And, he said that's something that stuck with him. And I think it's very important, because sometimes I think, there may be a different way to do this, especially now.
Yeah.
But sometimes just reaching out and expressing a desire to seek knowledge from a senior leader or even peer,
Yeah.
someone you look up to. I mean, you're a lieutenant colonel, right? If you had a lieutenant or a captain reach out to you for advice, I'm sure you'd be thrilled. I know I would. So, what do you think about that?
So I'm gonna share a story with you then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Speaking of now retired General Dingle, um, I he was my senior raider when I was a captain,
Oh, yeah.
uh, and we had very brief face to face interactions. But I did have one interaction with him when I was at Houston, face to face, and he said to me, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. And that was it,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yep.
not something that's not uncommon to hear, right? People,
Mm-hmm.
we
Exactly.
um but I was a senior. I was senior captain. I got promoted while I was there. So I don't know if I was still a captain or if I was a major just yet, but it was during that time. But I was just like, you know what? He's my senior raider. I am gonna reach out. I am. I'm absolutely gonna reach out. And so after a couple of weeks of building my confidence to press send on my email and having, I think I had 3 or 4 people read my email like, what do you think? Is this wording okay? I eventually did press send,
Yeah.
and he replied immediately himself, not
Mm-hmm.
the person managing his mailbox, but he replied immediately himself. And he said, and I don't remember the email verbatim, but something along the lines of, Ebony, thanks for reaching out. I got your message. I'm on the road right now, but when I get back, I'll re-engage. First of all, when I saw his name pop back up in my email,
Like.
my dropped. My dropped to the bottom of
Yeah.
my. Oh my god,
Yeah.
what did I do? But I opened his message and it said something to that regard. And I'm like, oh, okay, well that wasn't that bad. But he was on a during his circulation, and so I knew that he was out.
Mm-hmm.
But when he got back, he did respond to my message. He answered all of my questions. And then I followed up with the message, and he still answered that himself, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also not, like this long standing relationship that, you know, I still send him emails, but in those couple of email exchanges that we had, there was mentorship in that in several different ways, not just in him answering my questions, but him directly engaging me, letting me know, like, I see you and I am going to engage, but this is what's going on. So I didn't sit and think like he's blowing me off. You know,
Right.
he followed up immediately, and then he took the time, right, to sit there, read through my message, and answer my questions, and then follow up with again with more when I ask more questions. And so, um, I would say, you know, not only am I always not only was I super appreciative of him one acknowledging me by responding himself to my messages, but two, then taking the time after he's probably been on the road, you know, because at that time he was at Regional Command Atlantic, so going to all of his locations, but then finding time to, you know, sit down, read through my email, and answer all of my questions. But, you know, three, but meaning what he said.
Mm-hmm.
If you need me, reach out. You know, if you have questions, reach out. You know, but meaning that and then living that, that stuck with me to this day.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I'm here at Fort Sam, you know, and I see, you know, lieutenants all day. And I walk up to them.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, how you I'm Ebony, right?
Yeah.
Where are you at? What you got going on? You know, what are your plans? You need
Mm-hmm.
somebody to talk, come see me. This is my office. And it's just as easy as that. And if you
Yep.
take it up, do. If you don't, there's nothing there, you know, you don't. But it was that encounter that changed the way that I decided that I wanted to be as a leader. I you don't worry, I'll come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was so funny hearing you share his story and then
Yeah.
to actually be a recipient of his learned lesson from
Yeah.
that leader. So, yeah.
Yeah. He's someone that, you know, I've gotten to know over the years. You know, my first encounter was he became the 70 Hotel career manager, and I reached
Mm,
out to him. I was like, "Sir, you don't know me, but," and he responded right away, right? And, you know, just seeing him, and really, I think when you talk about your authentic self,
mm,
he's not being fake in any way. Like, who he is who he is, and he lets you know it. And it was
yeah.
cool these last couple of years. Before, you know, when I was the XO, I got to see him a lot more often, working with Colonel Kness as her XO, right? And he's just someone that, like, I admired so much, still do. Um,
Yeah.
how he led a giant organization during a very difficult time, especially. Um, it was impressive, and, you know, and again, what he said he did. He lived what he said he was going to do. So he was definitely someone that I viewed as a mentor. And I
Yeah.
really do think, like you brought up, you know, call it advocate, call whatever. Have on someone who speaks of you
Mm,
well when you're not in the room. And I think that's very important, especially throughout our career when it comes up for key jobs.
mm,
Um, Someone who, hey, I know Ebony, I know her work. If you want something done, she's the one you want to hire. And you may have no idea that conversation ever happened. And truthfully, they probably won't tell you, right? Because
yeah.
that's not they're not sitting there saying, "Oh, I talked great about you." It's
Yeah.
what they do because they care, and they care about the organization and the future of the organization. So, yeah, I'm glad we have a common a common thread with him. He is something. Well,
Yeah.
Ebony, we've been talking for quite a while. I know you're very busy, and I do thank you for your time today. Um,
Mm,
so I guess really my last question before we go, and I'll be sure to put your all of your links into the description on YouTube and everything else. Um, but how do you, if you had someone who is, say, a young man or woman who is on the fence about joining the military, right? Um, they don't know. It could be a college grad, could be a high school, irrelevant. What would you say to them about their thought process on joining the military?
Ooh, good question. Um, that's a good question. Um, One, I would start by saying that being on the fence is okay,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being on the fence about this decision on whether or not to join the military is okay because it is a huge decision. And the fact that you are taking the time, you are understanding how serious it is to make this type of commitment, um, is okay and it's important. So I think that sometimes we people don't understand the value in really thinking through a decision like this. But in addition to that, I would ask, what factors are you considering? What is driving your yes and your no, right? And do you understand what that looks like for you? And then I would ask them, well, what is your fantasy, best ending
Mm-hmm.
to your career? What does that look like? And do you see the military fitting into that? Um, because I think that you have to have a understanding of one, who you are, two, who and what the military is, and three, how can you two marry for a lasting and fulfilling career? And if you can't visualize or understand how those things link together, um, then I think that we need to go back to the drawing board and help you get to that decision. But I don't take I don't take the decision to join our the military lightly. And then I understand that it's not for everybody. So I'm not here to
For
sing
sure.
that song, that drum either.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I do think that before you or anyone decides to make this commitment, because it's lifelong, even after you take the uniform off, no matter how long you wear it, it is lifelong. You will always be a veteran, right? You need to understand what that means to you, and whether those two things make sense together.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Ebony. It's been truly an honor to have you on here, and you're such an inspiration. And I'm just really, as someone who's, you left, and I'm retiring. You're on the bigger and better things. It's really exciting to see all that you're doing, and I really hope at some point in the future, since I'll be following my wife's career, maybe we end up in the same location someday. But thank you, Ebony, and I'll be sure to put all that stuff in there for you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for what it is that you're doing. And I can't wait to see just how big this blossoms for you. And thank you for having me.
No problem. All right, Ebony. Thank you. Bye.